Friday edition, Hot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security Systems Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Hope everyone has a great weekend celebrating the 4th of July. We got a good show lined up for you today. We're going to start it off here in just a second with Ben Garrett, who covers the Ole Miss Rebels for the Ole Miss Spirit. Second portion of the show will be joined by former Gator quarterback Noah Brindise, not only a former player for Coach Spur, but also was on his staff. But we're going to go right to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by Ben Garrett, as I mentioned, from the Ole Miss Spirit. Good morning, Ben. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing well. A lot of stuff going on in the state of Mississippi. Let's talk about, obviously, a few days ago, I can't remember the exact date, but the removal of the state flag. Talk a little bit about what it was like going on and living in the state of Mississippi with all this happening.
Well, I was born and raised, in this state, and I've always lived here. And the state flag has always been a divisive point of contention in this state. So it was an historic time for momentum to build towards taking it down. And to actually see it come down was pretty surreal, to be honest with you. I honestly didn't think that it would happen so soon. I think certainly the NCAA and the SEC stepping up and being very forceful with their statements, as well as Kylan Hill stepping up and saying he wasn't going to play under the flag. And I think that kind of expedited the process a little bit. But, usually with the Mississippi legislature, you don't get that kind of movement, that kind of quick movement, kind of decisive movement. And everyone kind of expected, I think, that they would be out of session and wouldn't come back until January to solve this problem, just kind of kick the can down the road. And yet there they were, continued in session and voted to take it down, and Tate Reeves, to his credit, signed the bill. So it was an historic time. And I think that everybody in Mississippi that's been here their entire lives, like me, well, regardless of the side you fall on the flag, we recognize the moment. And for me, I feel like this. I mean, it's long overdue for this flag to come down. I mean, it's ridiculous. And for it to finally come down, I think it is certainly a credit to a number of different people who stepped up and said, okay, let's make real change happen. And it was long overdue.
Ben, I grew up an Ole Miss guy. My dad played there. My mom was a cheerleader, so I went to Ole Miss games my whole life. And I remember the days when the cheerleaders, they used to throw out little plastic balls or pom-poms. At Ole Miss games, they threw out little rebel flags. The entire stadium had them. I'm trying to remember, when did Ole Miss ban the Confederate flag being on campus and at the games?
The 90s, and they haven't flown the state flag on campus since 2015. But the Battle M flags you're talking about, yeah, they got rid of those in the 90s. And that's something that's been kind of frustrating, this whole deal is, look, I've been around Ole Miss my entire life. I went to Ole Miss and now I cover Ole Miss. It's a different perspective. You don't have the same kind of outlook on things once you're on this side of it. And I'm sure you deal with this a little bit too, but it does get frustrating when you're looking at the progress that this state is trying to make, and then Ole Miss always gets lumped in as like this bastion of all things like Confederate celebratory nonsense. It's just not necessarily fair, because Ole Miss, no school in this state, no school really in the SEC has attempted to distance itself and move forward into the future from an ugly past like Ole Miss has. And Ole Miss he got rid of Colonel Reb in 2003. He got rid of the Battle M flags you're talking about in the 90s. It doesn't fly the state flag. They've attempted to co-opt Ole Miss and Rebels to have more inclusive meanings that aren't controversial. And I think there's just been some bad rumors about where Ole Miss comes from, and people try to use that against Ole Miss. Ole Miss is the one that has to continually fight against on the recruiting trail, the recruiting trail, racially insensitive things against them. So I think this is a big move because it helps in Ole Miss. It helps the Mississippi State. one of the things that was used against both of these schools. I mean, constantly on the recruiting trail. I talked to coaches and players about this over the last handful of days. How many times it's used against them that the parents of kids horrified of this place because of that flag, and or come on the campus and seeing that flag anywhere, a sticker on the back of a truck. I mean, it's a very painful thing. And while some people say, oh, well, you know, it's heritage. I mean, it's basic empathy. And for anyone that can support something that's hurtful for other people like that, I never understood it. So, like I said, I think it's a big, big moment in Mississippi, an historic moment in Mississippi. And I think it's great for Ole Miss, too, because Ole Miss was at the forefront of this. Kermit Davis, I thought, was great, stepping up and speaking in front of the Mississippi legislature. Lane Kiffin flew in from California to help lobby the Mississippi legislature for change. So I think there's just been a lot of good to come from it. And it's a huge step forward for Mississippi.
As you mentioned, they got rid of Colonel Rev, the logo, the guy that walks around, the mascot. Has there been any talk about them getting rid of the name Rebels?
No, and I don't think there will be. Like I said, as I rambled and kind of just Rebels is for Ole Miss. They've tried to co-opt that into something different. And for Rebels, it can be any number of things. And Ole Miss has gotten rid of all of the Old South imagery that's ever existed for its athletics programs. And it's been gone since, I guess, Colonel Reb was the last bastion of that stuff. So I don't think there's good – Ole Miss will never get rid of Rebels. I think that's something that there will be a point of contention about probably. But this isn't blatant racism that's sitting in the face like Washington Redskins. Mm-hmm. Rebels for Ole Miss, they're like the Louisiana Tigers, for example. The LSU Tigers. Do you know what the LSU Tigers named after, Shane? They're named after a Civil War battalion, militia group. There's some ugly history across the SEC. And if you look at the Georgia state flag, if you look at any number of different things, there are ugly things. But the schools that I think the schools that attempt to move forward, the schools that attempt to take those ugly images and turn them into something good, inclusive, that to me, I think is a positive. I think we're seeing more positive momentum for change than we've seen, as long as I've been alive. 34 years old now. Yeah. And this is not just because I've been around Ole Miss and Rebels my entire life. Ole Miss was not named after the ugly rumor that you read on the internet. Ole Miss was named after a train. Rebels, I can understand the point of contention about Rebels. I understand that. But I think that's just – I think when people bring that up, they're not giving Ole Miss the credit that Ole Miss deserves and how they've tried to turn Rebels into something else. Mm-hmm. And how before the games in football, you have all your football players, which is predominantly African-American, stepping up saying, I am an Ole Miss Rebel. What they've made Rebel into. They're not calling themselves the Rebels because they're celebrating the Confederacy. That's not what they are. I just that for me, I don't think is ever going to change. And there might be a fight one day. There might be. But I think that's something that, with all the change that Ole Miss has made, my question, and, I just like having the conversation about it. My question is, when is enough for Ole Miss? When does Ole Miss no longer have to atone? How many statues they need to move? How many things they need to change? How many kids they need to kick off campus for doing abhorrent stuff because these kids come from out of state and they try to do these or try to live their Southern pride fantasies? What do they got to do? Why does Ole Miss have to continue to be punished for that? Because I think Ole Miss has made a lot of progress. And I'm not saying that Ole Miss deserves to be praised constantly. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, why can't Ole Miss be fairly viewed for the positive steps it's taking? Just if you're going to have the conversation, I just don't think I think it's constantly Ole Miss needs to do more, or Ole Miss is held to account for this when It wasn't Ole Miss's fault. So I don't know. I've been around Ole Miss my entire life. I've seen how Dan Wolken, I've seen how Pat Forty treat Ole Miss, and it's just strange because this is an historic time for Mississippi, and it's something that should be celebrated. And that everybody, doesn't matter who you root for, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Southern Miss, any of the 8 public universities in the state. The Mississippi flag is gone, and that is a huge deal, and we're leaving. And I just wish that we could celebrate that and actually take some time to breathe before we move on to the next thing to bitch about.
Yeah. Refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from Wrap Spot. July is your lucky month at Wrap Spot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. We're speaking with Ben Garrett from the Ole Miss Spirit, covers the Rebels. You can follow him on Twitter at SpiritBen. All right, let's talk Lane Kiffin. Obviously, the state of Mississippi, when they hired Lane Kiffin and Mississippi State hires Mike Leach, the state has to be excited. Hopefully we get to play football. But just talk a little bit about what Lane Kiffin brings to Ole Miss.
Instant credibility more than anything. I think that was the biggest takeaway for me when Lane was first hired by Ole Miss and Mike Leach at Mississippi State. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, 2014, that Ole Miss and Mississippi State were both ranked in the top 4 in college football.
Mm-hmm.
But because the state apparently can't have nice things, one school decided that I didn't want the other school to be good if it would sacrifice itself for being good to take out the other one. And then another school decided that, you know what, we're here, but we're going to do things a certain way that's going to rub some people the wrong way. And now both of these schools end up in a place where you go from the top 5 6 years ago to barely making a bowl with the best roster you ever had in Mississippi State, and Ole Miss not having been to a bowl since 2016 when they went to the Sugar Bowl. So it's instant credibility. It's actually being relevant in college football for people to pay attention to you. Mm-hmm. Ole Miss matters again. It could be an absolute disaster. Of course it could. But it doesn't matter because you take that shot every single time. Because it was never better than when Ole Miss was going to the Peach Bowl, even though they got beat really bad in the Peach Bowl because they had everybody hurt and whatever. They were going to the Peach Bowl. They were going to the Sugar Bowl. They were going to the bowl. They were going to the Birmingham Bowl, man. The very first year of Hugh Freeze, when they hadn't been to a bowl in however many years under Houston Nunn, it was a disaster. People are starved for success. They won 7 games. They packed the Birmingham Bowl. If they went to the Birmingham Bowl this year, they sell it out again because Ole Miss fans are starved for it. And Lane Kiffin brings name recognition. So even with 7 wins, the stories that would be written about Ole Miss, the exposure that you would get. And I think that's why they made the move. And I never understood how many people didn't understand that. And I don't mean around here because I think everybody thought that, it was time for change with Matt Luke. But if you looked at this program and where it was going nowhere. There was no momentum. And Lane Kiffin is a big swing. I grant you that. It's a big, big swing for Ole Miss. And you could whiff spectacularly. But what if it works?
Yeah.
Because Ole Miss has been there. They've been to the Sugar Bowl. They've been in contention for the playoff. Had 4th and 25 not happen against Arkansas. Ole Miss goes to the SEC championship game against Florida. And they get a rematch with Florida. Who knows what happens? Maybe they beat Florida, they go to the playoffs. They had a chance for that. They're right on the precipice, but they couldn't break through. They went in the complete opposite direction. And it's been ugly. So, yes, I think that's what it's done. But it's unfortunate that Ole Miss, Mississippi State haven't really been able to build on this. I mean, look, sports are sports. They don't really matter. But and coronavirus, with everything that's come with COVID-19 and everything we're dealing with, sports are the last thing we should be worried about. Keeping people healthy, that's a big deal, right? But we're here to talk about sports. So it's unfortunate for Ole Miss, for Mississippi State, and any first-year staff across the country that the shutdown happened like it did, because they are behind. I mean, they are legitimately behind. Ole Miss has got the worst recruiting class in the SEC. They lost all their summer camps. They lost the spring evaluation period. I mean, that's even before you get to spring practices, man. They haven't even practiced with their kids. Yeah, you can get on a Zoom call and talk about, okay, well, this is what our offense looks like. But any personal instruction, that's prohibited. Yeah. So they're behind. And you talked about it earlier, man. I don't even know if we're going to have a season. I'll be honest with you. If you were open for football, last week was a bad week. It was a bad week because administrators, forget coaches and players. I mean, they'll play whatever if it's time. Some kids will opt out. But administrators are horrified right now. And regardless of how you feel about a stupid mask, okay? Regardless of how you feel about it. If you think it's the dumbest thing or it's infringement on your freedom, who cares? I'm just going to tell you, you're going to have to put it on. Because if you want football back, wear a mask, social distance. Otherwise, we're not going to get kickoff. And at the end of this, whenever it starts to clear out for good, you can, and the science proves that wearing a mask was dumb. You could say, well, that was dumb. But, Shane, I'll walk backwards for 3 months if I have to get sports back.
No doubt.
You know?
I agree.
I mean, that's where I'm at. I mean, and it's not about you. It's about the other person. And administrators are horrified. And last week, with the spike in cases, I mean, I heard from so many people involved in major college athletics, including one person in the SEC office. And the pessimism I had not heard since this first happened. And we're in June. No, it's July 1 now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's,
I mean,
scary times.
What are we doing?
Yep. Peach Lane Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Visit them at peachlandendental.com. Last thing for you, Ben. Let's just talk quarterbacks because Lane, in my opinion, is a tremendous play caller. He's had success with quarterbacks everywhere he's been. You got John Rice Plumlee, who came on the scene last year in the conference as a true freshman, one of the fastest kids I've ever seen. I think Matt Corral is still there. You see a split quarterback deal, or is this John Rice Plumlee's team?
I think it's a completely split deal. I'll be honest with you. They had spring football practices. I think we're going into fall camp with Matt Corral leading because John Rice was playing baseball. Not really playing. He was on the team. He was occasionally pinch running, maybe get a spot start in the midweek every now and then or something. But Matt Corral was going to get the dominant share of the reps in the spring. I think he'd have been ahead. And Lane Kiffin kind of acknowledged that when we were all talking to him not too long ago. He's like, look, with no spring, these kids are even. I think he was looking at it like, all right, John Rice Plumlee's got to prove it to me. But you're right. There's something I've been talking about on my podcast and just on this spirit, the Ole Miss spirit. I think there's a real disconnect between how John Rice Plumlee is viewed locally to how he's viewed nationally. Like you bring him up, and the first thing you say is like, you see how fast he is. You saw him rush for 1,000 yards. I've had Brandon Marcello, Chris Lowe, different national media types, and all of them said the same thing. This looks like a future superstar in the SEC. Meanwhile, back locally, it's more of a mixed bag. You got people say, oh, well, yeah, he can run, but he can't pass. He can't throw.
Well, I agree.
Immediately, well, they forget, though, that he wasn't really given the opportunity.
That's true.
Matt Luke and Rich Rod did not let that kid throw. And when they did let him throw, it was in such a limited capacity that it did a disservice to that kid. And it did a disservice to both of those quarterbacks in the Egg Bowl when it was time to go and try to come back. When they needed to throw, they took out John Rice and put in Matt Corral. It was like some video game stuff, man. I mean, it was bizarre. It was the most obvious offense. It was ridiculous. So the way I view the quarterback battle is very simple. If John Rice proves and is given an equal opportunity to throw like Matt Corral was, I think that the natural talent and tools, he has a far greater ceiling than Matt Corral. The arm talent is not better than Matt Corral. Matt Corral has better arm talent, no doubt. But if you're looking for someone with a superstar quality that has already proven as a true freshman in the SEC that he can produce, he rushed for over 1,000 yards. There's only been 5 other people in Ole Miss history that have rushed for 1,000 yards. And he did it at quarterback. So I think he right now is viewed as QB1 going in. Matt Corral will have his say. Grant Tisdale might have his say. But at the end of this, I think there's too much tempting about John Rice Plumlee. He's too intriguing a piece of clay for Lane Kiffin as a quarterback developer who made Blake Sims into a 4,000-yard passer. It'll be too tempting to not put him under center because of what he can do for you. But Matt Corral, I mean, he could just as easily emerge as well, because Matt Corral only lost his starting job because he got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And that kid, he deserves an equal shot. So it's going to be by far the most interesting story come fall camp. By far. But are we going to get fall camp? That's what I have no idea.
That's the million-dollar question. Yeah. We hope so. But, Ben, I appreciate you.
Yeah, and in Florida, and look, Ben, and in Florida and Ole Miss are playing. So, look, you know.
I'm actually going to make –
Would you come down here if they let us travel?
Oh, I'm coming, no doubt about it, because I haven't been to Oxford in quite some time. And I love Oxford. I think it's a great scenery for college football. And I know the Florida fans love going to that trip as well. So I will be there.
Yeah, see, and then all meals on me then. You know, I might just have to take you out in town. It'll be great.
Sounds good. Well, Ben, appreciate you joining us, my man. Let everybody know where they can follow you and check out your work.
All right, for the Ole Miss Spirit, affiliate to 247 Sports. Check out the podcast, Soccer Champions. It's in iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, and Twitter for whatever that's worth. I hate Twitter, @SpiritBen. But thanks for letting me come on, man. I appreciate it. You know, it's been a while since we talked. When you reached out, I was like, man, it's been too long, man. We have to stay more in touch. We have to be better friends to each other. So thanks for letting me come on, buddy. Appreciate it.
Anytime, Ben. Take care. Be safe, my friend. That's Ben Garrett.
All right.
Spirit, join us. Hey, folks, at Center State Bank, we put business first. We're the largest community bank in the state of Florida and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Center State Bank member, FDIC. When we come back, we're going to talk to Noah Brindise. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to chill for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Area Rug Masters, your #1 choice in Gainesville for all your area rug cleaning services. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Digital Mortgage Guide, Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Niapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Aikido America Martial Arts and After School, Doreen Weeby Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Radware, Style Cuts, Wrap Spot, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Chris Doring Mortgage, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakow Insurance, and Pomodoro Cafe. If you are interested in promoting your business on this show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the Advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. I want to thank Ben Garrett from the Ole Miss Spirit, talking Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss football with us. Now we're going to go back to the Titan MR hotline. But first, Celebration Point is where the Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shops, Starbucks, and Regal Cinemas. And coming soon, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, and Visor's Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point. All right. So now our next guest is Noah Brindise. He knows all about celebrating with the head ball coach. What's going on, Noah? How are you?
What's up, Shane? Good to see you, buddy. Long time.
Yeah, no doubt. Got the beard working.
Yeah.
Looks good, my man.
Oh, thank you. Just down here in South Florida, just grinding.
How's the golf game?
I'm kind of in that 4 or 5 handicap area that I can't really get any better. It's starting to kind of agitate me, but, still trying.
Yeah, got to try.
It's fishing season now, though. It's fishing season. So,
well, Noah, let's go back to your days. You grew up in Fort Myers, played football down there. Did you play any other sports growing up in high school?
now you've played basketball with me, Shane. I mean, it had to have been obvious to you that I played basketball. I played basketball, baseball, and football in high school growing up. Didn't really play much golf, but football, basketball, baseball, trifecta.
So what made you decide to walk on to the University of Florida football team?
Well, if you think back about the time period, that was the early 90s when you were playing, and it was all because of you, Shane. I mean, let's just be honest. It was I obviously, when the recruiting period was over for me, it was, I ended up signing with a Division II school in North Carolina, and I went up there for a semester, and I didn't really like it, and I was always had aspirations to do something bigger and better, and that was 93 when you were there, and you guys were really starting to kind of change the game. And I'd gotten into the University of Florida coming out of high school, which at this point I don't know if I would still get in nowadays, but so I made a decision to go give it a shot, walk on, which in hindsight, I really don't know what the heck I was thinking, especially the way, walk-ons are kind of handled now. But fortunately, had a head coach that obviously we both shared and admire very much, and that really didn't care about how heavily someone was recruited or, how big they were, how strong their arm was, but just, how coachable they were. And, things worked out for me. It took a while. But I think the real reason was, the draw to try to play at a school like University of Florida, and specifically for, a guy in Steve Spurrier that I didn't know. He obviously didn't recruit me. I wasn't that highly recruited, but he took a chance on me, let me walk on. I was always a team guy, helped out wherever I could, ran the scout team, and I guess kind of got better and better to the point where I got a chance to play some towards the end of my career, which really, I had such a great career there anyway, just being around that atmosphere and, meeting guys, alumni guys like you, and that I'd had a great time there, a great career. And then to actually play in some meaningful games was kind of like icing on the cake for me. So I look back on it with nothing but fond memories. I'm glad it worked out the way it did. And, it's really kind of unbelievable when you think about it now.
Yeah, it is, because as you mentioned, walk-ons, I don't want to say treated, that may be the wrong word to use, but it's different nowadays than it was back then. Back then you could have as many walk-ons as you really wanted. Pretty much every Gator booster's grandson or son was a walk-on on the team. But, you did get to play for Coach Spurrier. I want to say you were on the 96 team, right?
That was my junior year. And we ran, I was about to say we ran up the score on a lot of people. We beat people pretty significantly a lot that year. So I got to play in 3, 4, 5 games as backup duty. So I was, not an integral part of the team, but I was on it. So that was a nice thing to be able to have a championship ring. So
let's talk about, so as you mentioned, you got to play in some really good games. Let's talk about the one that probably stands out the most to Gator fans, the Florida State game. I want to say they were ranked number 2 in the country in the Swamp, where Coach alternated you and Doug pretty much every play. I never had to experience that. How difficult was it? I'm sure it bothered Doug a lot more than it bothered you.
Yeah, definitely. Doug was, obviously a lot more talented than me, and he played the majority of that season. And, got in a little bit of trouble the week of the LSU game, and I ended up playing against Auburn and some against Georgia, and I played the whole game at Vandy by myself and played with him some in South Carolina leading up to that game. And I think, I think when Coach Spurrier first told us his idea, we were like, well, it didn't really make sense. I mean, we had been both playing, but it wasn't on a play-by-play basis like that. But looking back on it, and it really hadn't worked as good since then. I know he tried it a few times, but we really kind of needed, I think, both of us for that game, and we needed his talent, and I think maybe I was a little bit of a calming influence for the guys. So it worked out. It's one of those things that, I mean, you've been around Coach Spurrier even longer than I have, and there's a lot of ideas that he has that when you first hear it, you're like, what the hell is this guy talking about? And somehow it ends up working.
Yeah.
Things have worked out for him like that a lot, and it worked out for me. And because of that game, I mean, the impact that it's had on my entire life is phenomenal, really. And we could easily lost that game. And my impact on us winning, I mean, I had something to do with it, but I didn't. It wasn't because of me. We wouldn't. If I played the whole game, we probably wouldn't have won it. Let's just put it that way. So, and I know that. I'm not stupid enough to think that raising my flag saying I'm the man. But it was truly like a unique experience, and it worked. And I think they were number one at the time, and I think that was their 11th or 12th game, and they'd knocked out every starting quarterback that had played. Had been knocked out except for one. And so maybe that was another reason why he felt like he needed two of us ready. But it was just one of those things that it worked out, and it's really been a blessing.
So Noah, obviously that game was important in your career, but is there one moment that stands out, whether you played or just part of a team, or what's the one moment that stands out the most in your mind when you were at the University of Florida? Maybe the greatest moment?
Well, you'd have to put that one up there. But I think, previous to that, probably 4 or 5 weeks before that, we were at Auburn, and they were undefeated actually at the time too. And Jesse Palmer actually started that game, which really irritated me. No offense to Jesse, who I'm still good friends with, but and I came in a little bit after halftime, and we ended up winning 24-10. We had a 97-yard drive, which was mostly Fred Taylor. I mean, I hit a couple of passes, but that for me was really the first meaningful playing time that I ever had. I mean, I'd played in games in backup duty and whatever, but here I was, in Jordan-Hare Stadium on the 3-yard line in a tie ball game against an undefeated team, and it worked. We won the game. My stats weren't phenomenal. Nothing that I did was phenomenal, but I think that for me was probably it was like, okay, I did something. I contributed. And then from there on out, my confidence went up, and I just wanted to play more and more. But probably for good reason. It was towards the end of my career, so I didn't have enough time to screw up enough to where, Gator fans remember me as being terrible. So it was just the right amount of playing time, I think, for me.
Hey, Chris Story Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right. Helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Story Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. We're speaking with Noah Brindise on the Titan & More hotline. So Noah, you graduate, you decide you want to be a coach. You're a GA for Coach Spurrier at Florida, and Rex was the quarterback. And a lot of people, that coach's last couple of years with Rex at quarterback and Jabbar Riche and Taylor Jacobs, they kind of get lost in the shuffle with all the other great quarterbacks and well, not so much quarterbacks, but receivers. Just talk about what it was like being a GA under Coach Spurrier and those teams that Rex was quarterback. I mean, I think that's phenomenal.
It was really fun for me. I was gone for a year working at a Division III school, actually, or Sinus College, where Dan Mullen and our friend Paul Gunther, who's now the Oakland Raiders defensive coordinator, I worked for him for a year. Yeah, I worked for him for a year, and then Coach Spurrier brought me back. So there were still a lot of guys that I'd played with. Jesse was still there. Doug was still there. So we had that season in '99. They moved on. And then 2000, Jesse played pretty well for some of the year. And then Rex came in. And really, we didn't know. I mean, we know Rex now, and he was kind of quiet. everybody liked him, but you didn't really know why, like, but when he played, he just had it. And the following year, 2001, was my third year there as a GA. And throughout the course of time, Coach Burrier developed me and became more confident in my ability to coach quarterbacks and to help him come up with game plans. And really, I coached Rex, and it was, for me, probably the most fulfilling year that I had as a coach, even though I wasn't making any money. Basically, thank God I had a wife that had a job at the time, or actually she was still my girlfriend. But we had a season that I think, and there's no offense to you or Danny or any of the other guys that play, or Tim Tebow, Rex Grossman had one of the best seasons a Florida quarterback had ever. He finished second in the Heisman, and I really probably should have won it.
Yep.
But we lost a game to Tennessee that was rescheduled because of 9/11. We played them after FSU, and we all know the story. Ernest Graham got his leg twisted in a pile and this and that. And we lost 2 games that year that we shouldn't have lost. And because of that, we didn't play in the SEC championship game, but we still went to the Orange Bowl and beat the crap out of Maryland. And I can remember the feeling. Now, we didn't know that 2 days later Coach Burr was going to retire from Florida, but I remember the feeling of walking off. Now, we just finished an 11-2 season, first in the SEC in offense, first in defense. Rex finished second in the Heisman, but we felt like this is not good enough. We didn't reach the pinnacles that this team was capable of. And in subsequent years, and a lot of conversations with Coach Burr, he said that might have been our best team. It might have been the best team that he had. It definitely was the best team that didn't win a championship. And I say that on our 97 team finished 4th in the country, and we weren't even close to that 2001 team. So that was, in a lot of ways, and Coach has said he really thought that team was good enough to win it all. And he thought his last game was going to be coaching in the Rose Bowl, because that's where the national championship game was that year. And we'd have probably ended up playing Miami, who might have beaten us, because that was when they were starting to get really good. But we felt a little bit like we hadn't achieved as good as we could have. And then from there, we went to the Redskins, and I got to coach you.
That's right. You were my quarterback coach with the Redskins. Talk about the 2 years you were there. Were you surprised that Coach brought you along to coach professional quarterbacks? And secondly, people always ask me, why didn't it work? What's your opinion? And my thoughts are, protection schemes at times,
Sure.
But he never really, quote, had a legit NFL starter at the quarterback position. That's my opinion.
I think that first year, and I'll answer your first question first. Was I surprised? No, I wasn't, because he had intimated to me, because I'd been offered a job to coach quarterbacks at UCF the year before, prior to my last year as a GA at Florida. And Coach had encouraged me to stay and said, if you stay, we'll figure it out. You're going to stay with me for a while. And that was good enough for me, because all I ever wanted to do, if I would have stayed coaching at the University of Florida, I would probably still be coaching, because that's all I ever really wanted. And once I left, that's all I ever really wanted to do was go back there, and it never quite timed out. So, things happen for a reason. I got out of coaching, and I don't have any complaints about that. But I wasn't surprised. Was I nervous? Yeah, but I felt like I was ready. And it was great having you there, because you'd been in the league 9 or 10 years at that point, and you were such a great mediator between Coach's way and the way it's done in the NFL, which is totally different. And I wasn't prepared for that. I think that first year, with the defense that we had, and with Stephen Davis, with you, if you would have played the entire year, and I know you had some injuries, I think we probably could have made the playoffs, quite honestly. But Coach wanted to do things his way, and he learned as we went. And then, the second year, the bad vibes between the ownership and the coach and stuff that's really continued to happen in Washington since we left there. I don't know that it would have changed had he gone to another place, because I think the difference between the college game, as how he does things his way. His way is different. His way is not the NFL way. He's not very detailed. He's not going to go in there and put things on a PowerPoint and tell everybody what their jobs are. He's just going to say, this is what we're running. And usually it works, but in the NFL, I think that the personnel aspect of it, it reared its head a lot more than he probably thought it would. I think he thought he could take a bunch of guys that he'd coached before. We'd go out there and run plays, and it'd be like running 7-on-7, and we'd throw the ball up and down the field. And the biggest thing is, your left guard is a rookie free agent. He probably can't block that dude that's making $8 million a year. That's at the 3 technique. That's reality, So any play looks great until that guy whiffs and you're on your ass getting another epidural injection on Monday. So I think he was meant to be a college head coach. That's not to say that he couldn't have succeeded in the NFL, but he could have in the right place, but he didn't go to the right place.
Yeah. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Visit them at peachlanddental.com. A few more minutes with Noah Brindise here on the Titan MR Hotline. So, Noah, you leave the Redskins. You're offensive coordinator, I think, at East Carolina, UNLV. Yeah. Did you enjoy those stops, or was it difficult having coached at Florida and then in the NFL to go, I don't want to say step down, but let's be honest, those aren't SEC type programs.
Right. Well, and looking back on things, Coach Burr sat out for a year. I had a chance to go be an offense coordinator at East Carolina. And with the exception of the 2001 season at Florida, I think that was probably my favorite season of coaching, because I got to run an offense just the way I wanted to do it, call it what I wanted. I had a defensive head coach in John Thompson. But that year showed me the business of coaching. Well, I'd learned it in the NFL too, but John Thompson was in his second year. I thought he was going to be secure. We didn't get off to a great start. We were starting to play better. A new athletic director comes in and fired. So I was out of a job and went to UNLV for 2 years. And that's when I really started to kind of sour on the whole profession. I was unhappy. I was like, I'm living in Las Vegas. What the heck am I doing here? And it was difficult for me to – oops, sorry. I did just do something there. It was difficult for me to not want to get back to the South and get back to an SEC or an ACC school. And I made a decision because I had two small children that I wasn't spending much time with. And I just was really kind of homesick a little bit. So I moved back to Gainesville, got into medical sales. And 5 years ago, I moved to Jupiter, running a business down here in the same capacity. And I really, I can't say that I would change the way things have gone.
Yeah, no, you made the right choice. There's no question. You get to spend more time with your.
But it does kind of irritate me to see guys, like I've known Dan for a long time and I like him a lot, but he's making $6 or $7 million a year. Like I remember when he was a GA at Syracuse looking for a job and I was trying to help him. So I don't want to say it irritates me. I mean, good for him. I'm glad he's getting it, but I probably left a little early, maybe I could have gotten paid a little.
There's no doubt about that. So let's talk about real quick. I usually have all former players or people that work for Coach Spurrier. They have some great HBC stories. You got one you can tell us?
Oh, Shane, you probably know them all by now. But
well, not me. The people want to hear the Gator Nation.
They probably heard them all too. But he's such an interesting character. And I get this question a lot whenever I'm interviewed. And, we all know the story about him saying it's not your fault. It's my fault for putting in the game and so on and so forth, which I use that. I use that to this day. That's such a great saying. But I think the best things about him were the fact that he's reached such high levels in his life. And then really, at the end of the day, is a very, very simple human being. And by that, I mean, I used to hear him curse because he couldn't figure out how to work the coffee maker or put something in the microwave. And I remember one time he'd moved into that nice house on your old street in Hale Plantation his last year or two at Florida. And, he always liked that, to take having a steam room. And he was showing Jamie Speronis and I around his new house. And I said, Coach, this is pretty cool. This shower turns into a steam room. He goes, you're kidding. He didn't even know it. You'd think if you're buying a house, that'd be a pretty cool feature that you know about. So, just like, and I actually had him come down and speak at my company's awards banquet 2 years ago. And I think the thing that's really cool now is I believe now that he's not coaching anymore, He doesn't have the same, anxiety levels. I think he's really been able to like reflect on things. You and I get a lot of phone calls from him now, just random times with random thoughts and, hey, remember this? And I think it's really cool to see him kind of move into that. He's getting older, but that phase of life where I think he's really proud of what he's done. But I also feel like he's very proud of the guys that he coached. And to see now, I tell him this all the time, Coach, you're not a businessman at all, but you'd be surprised at how many of your lessons can carry over into even in the fields that I do. And it's really just, it boils down to like honesty and integrity, telling people where they stand, even if it hurts a little bit, you got to tell them where they stand, and just being a good family person and taking care of the people that are important to you. Really simple things that have stayed with me and carried over. And, him and Jerry they're like my second parents in a lot of ways. Like I know they are for you as well. So I feel extremely fortunate to have crossed paths with him, and he's been a very extremely impactful person in my life, and will continue to be.
Yep, no doubt about it. Last thing for you, obviously the last 2 years, Dan Mullen has won 21 games, won 2 major bowl games, has Florida back on track where at least we're competing and have a chance to win a championship. Your thoughts on what Dan has done to turn the program around?
Well, I think Dan's done a tremendous job. I think you and I talked for since Urban left, and even when Urban was there, like the fact that the only reason maybe we were a little bit sideways with the way Urban ran the offense. It wasn't what we knew, but it worked. They won, and they won big. But really, since he left, the lack of development of the quarterback position has been what's kept our program back. I love Will Muschamp. I know you love Will too. I thought Will was one position away during the couple years there for probably winning an SEC championship. I mean, he was 12-1 one of those years, and really with lackluster quarterback play. But then, then the whole McElwain era, I'm extremely excited to see somebody that can come in, develop a quarterback, and see offense that doesn't make your stomach turn, And my only thing with Dan, if he can continue to recruit at a high level, I think he can be our head coach and win championships for a long time. I really do. But now the way the game is now, it's, do you have a slide that goes down from your meeting room to the weight room? There's so many bells and whistles that at the end of the day don't really matter. But for some reason, it sends kids to different schools. So I know
we're going to have something similar to that that's going to be built here in the next 2 years.
Oh, I know. They hit me up for money for that, like I'm sure they are you. I want it. I mean, I think we need it, unfortunately. That's the times we're in. And but it's a lot different than when I just was happy to be there. I was just happy to get a sweatshirt. I think it was like a champion sweatshirt back then. I was like, this is great. I wore it everywhere. Starter. So I wore that thing everywhere. Like I'm a walk-on on the Gator team. But now you got to have all these other things, which is fine. It's time.
Last thing for you, Noah. Great story. Kyle Trask comes off the bench. Didn't play in high school. Has had no playing time really here. The season he had last year was remarkable, really.
Yeah, it really was.
You take away what Joe Burrow did, which was the best college season I've ever seen.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you that because you and I usually have similar ideas about quarterback. I think Joe Burrow had the best year I've ever seen a college quarterback have.
I agree with that. I think Joe Burrow, and I could be wrong, but he has a lot. He is, to me, just the way he is in the pocket, he's Tom Brady.
Athletic Tom Brady.
With better mobility.
Yeah,
that's exactly what he is.
You can't. That's the only way you can compare him. He's not Peyton Manning because he throws a better ball than Peyton. He's more athletic than Peyton. He's Tom Brady that can move. So hopefully the Bengals don't mess him up.
But give me your thoughts about what you saw in Trask last year.
Awesome. I mean, I love the underdog story like that. I think he played well. He was in control. Dan did a great job of playing to his strengths. We've got a lot of weapons on the outside. We used them well. And for some reason, I thought until like the middle of the year that he was a senior. But then I found out, well, he's got another year left. He could have a phenomenal season. And I think we're knocking on the door in the East. I think it could be anybody's year. Hopefully we get to play. But what Kyle did with Dan's guidance was exceptional. It was a great season, and I think we're going to have many more to come.
All right. Well, Noah, we appreciate you joining us. Enjoy your vacation to Montana. Be safe. Put your mask on out there now.
Yes, sir. You too.
All right. That's Noah Brindise joining us on the Titan MR Hotline. We're going to take our final time out. When we come back, we're going to wrap this show up. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your area rug cleaning services. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Digital Mortgage Guide, Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Aikido America Martial Arts and After School, Doreen Weeby Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Radware, Style Cuts, Wrap Spot, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Chris Doring Mortgage, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakow Insurance, and Pomodoro Cafe. If you are interested in promoting your business on this show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the Advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown!
Welcome back to this Friday edition of Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We want to thank Ben Garrett from the Ole Miss Spirit, talking Ole Miss football, and also former Gator quarterback and coach under Coach Spurrier, Noah Brindise. This Day in Sports is brought to you by Area Rug Masters. Don't fight your area rugs. Take them to Area Rug Masters. With their convenient curbside services, you will never need to go anywhere else. Call them at 352-448-5999. This Day in Sports in 2004 at Wimbledon, Maria Sharapova becomes the first Russian player to win Wimbledon. She beat Serena Williams 6-1, 6-4. That happened in 2004. That's brought to you by Area Rug Masters. Next week's lineup, make sure folks tell your friends and family to follow us on Facebook Live. That is key. Hit the follow button. Also check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Next week's lineup, make sure you have a safe holiday weekend celebrating the 4th. Next week's lineup, just going to throw a few names out there. We have Tony McCoy, former defensive tackle, played in the NFL. Some guy named Fred Taylor will join the program. And a girl named Laura Rutledge will be a part of this show next week. Make sure you check out our Facebook page. We'll let you know what time, what days everyone will be on. But we appreciate you joining us all this week. Again, make sure you go follow us and like us on Facebook Live. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Today's show is a wrap. It's brought to you by Wrap Spot. So stay safe this weekend, folks. Enjoy the weekend celebrating the 4th of July. We'll see you back on Monday. You've been watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Take care.